Okay, so I made some changes to my filming setup. Primarily I changed the mirror. So I was able to lower the camera, and I think that's helping. Partially because I have been exceedingly curious, and also partially because I had gotten some requests for it. I am going to be doing 3 looks 1 palette using the Unearthly Cosmetics Fall Magic. Now they used to be called Alien Cosmetics, and then due to copyright reasons they had to change their name to Unearthly, so I don't have anything from when they were Alien Cosmetics. This is gonna be my first thing from the brand ever, and here's what it looks like. It is really pretty. Mochi's currently chewing on my finger, so I will take a quick intermission while I think about what I want to do, and I will return to start the look while Mochi decides when she wants to be done chewing on my finger. No, you cannot walk onto my desk. She wants to walk onto desk. That is banned. That is very banned. So I'm gonna start off with Cocoa, which is the shade here. This is a surprisingly neutral palette, honestly, and I do really love the brown tones in here. They are so neutral toned. I'm always willing to give any brand at least one chance. So I'm gonna lay this down as the foundation shade. I did lay down a very thin layer of Peiliee's eye base just to make sure that my shadows have something to stick to. So far I'm purposefully adding sheer thin layers of Cocoa, a little bit by little bit, and so far so good. Of course it's really hard to screw up a brown, so if this was a bad brown, I would have been very disappointed. Very pretty brown. It's actually quite neutral. Very, very slight warm lean on my eyelid. Okay, so I laid that down as like the base shade, and I want to go ahead and go straight into planning out my shimmers before I do anything else. So I'm gonna swatch these on my finger really quick. So Cashmere is kind of like a thinner, smoother, and less reflective metallic, and then Change is gonna have these, gonna be shiftier. So this is looking lighter, so I'm gonna put this down using my finger. I'm gonna lay this down as like the base shimmer, and then everything else will go on top. It does feel, it's a little bit too thin and too plain for me to use on its own, but I can totally see this being a really just great base shade, and then you just lay other shades on top of this. It would also be like a really great lower lash line shade for me. So I'm gonna just lay that down so you can really see very little, not like super impactful, but at the same time it's quite smoothing, very pretty. And then this is gonna go straight on top. And Cashmere is quite creamy feeling, so it makes sure that my eyelid is not too mattified, and it goes on really well. This Change obviously is a lot more sparkly, a lot thicker. And so far this eye look has been really easy. As you can see, 3 shadows so far, all very easy to lay down. I'm only using my finger for a little bit of them. And then this should be pretty easy to replicate on the other eye. So now I'm just going to use my fingers again, and if my under eyes look yellow, I had an experiment going. It completely failed. Please ignore. So again, I'm taking some Cashmere. It almost reminds me of like a Tom Ford shadow. Not that I've tried Tom Ford shadows yet, but this Cashmere gives off a really high-end kind of air to it. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's going to completely boil down to your personal preference, because like I know we like to meme about luxury eyeshadows being expensive, and that's it. But it definitely gives off that high-end finish, and I can see some people really liking it. It's not something that I see in a lot of indie palettes, that's for sure. This is a finish I would expect to see out of like something higher end. Alright, and so again, Change is so much thicker, almost chunkier even. So I'm gonna press that on, and I'm focusing it mostly close to my lash line and then going towards my outer corner. So I'm not really putting it on the inner corner like I put Cashmere everywhere. Now the shade Change, it's so sparkly, it is thicker. You can kind of see this right here is where I have a healing pimple, or maybe an emerging pimple. Who knows? So if you see, you can really see how it's so reflective and shiny, it catches the light and you can see the bump. So just be aware. So this is not an eyeshadow problem. This is me literally having a pimple on my eyelid again. And I'm going to go into Branch, which is the darkest brown in this palette. And I'm going to use this to add some depth. At first glance, this palette looks like it goes pretty deep, but then on second glance, it actually doesn't really. I'm going to switch to a bigger brush, I think, actually. I also I use such a sheer layer of the Peiliee's eye base. I probably needed to use more, or I need to change which primer I use. I think my biggest discovery about indie shadows is that sometimes they really are just that finicky in terms of primers. They'll really just respond so differently to different primers, whereas mainstream shadows will respond pretty much any primer. There's just a lot less maintenance. I am gonna go back into Cocoa now, and I'm just gonna blend across everything. Yeah, Cocoa is compared to Branch, Cocoa is a little bit harder pressed. I want to see if I can build up Cashmere just a little bit. Maybe with a brush it'll look better. I do want to use it up here above Change. So that is absolutely beautiful, and Change actually ended up being surprisingly kind of subtle, but in a really elegant, beautiful way. Like, you can really see the shifts come through, but at the same time it's not overpowering, and there's certainly no cast as I blend it out. The only thing that this palette is lacking is a true highlight shade or inner corner shade. So for the looks in this palette, I am going to be using my own personal shades for the inner corner highlight, because otherwise I feel like I'm not giving this palette a fair chance. So I do really want to use Cashmere on the lower lash line. I think it's gonna be so pretty. Ooh, see, I could use Cashmere and Branch or Cashmere and Cocoa and just do a exceedingly simple daytime eye look. I'm gonna use Cheetah from Chantecaille as the inner corner highlight, especially given how expensive this doggone eyeshadow is. Yeah, I better use this more often, right? Yeah. It's got the same undertones as Cashmere, it's just, you know, bright enough to use on my inner corner. I'm a total clown. I unironically like these Chantecaille singles and I want more, but I don't have money. I feel like it's like I add one shadow from Chantecaille to my collection per year. That's really all I can that's all I can swing. But hey, good things don't come easy. It's like every time they do 25% off, that includes their philanthropy shades, I add one. This year I only added one, the elephant shade. Okay, so this is gonna be the finished makeup look. I absolutely love how it turned out, so all we need now are lashes. I'm gonna finish up the rest of my face and then I'll be right back. Okay, so this is gonna be my finished look. I love how this final look pulled together. I just went for something really simple on the face with everything, as if I'm gonna just want this to be some kind of not super intense daytime look where I'm just going shopping or something and I don't want to scare people off with my makeup. So for my blush, the point blush of this look is going to be this Kaleidos blush in Dream Walk. Really, really pretty. It's definitely a much more vivid and intense pink than the Dior one. And then I did need to blend it out and blend it into my contour, and I didn't want it to just kind of be circles on my cheeks. So of course I needed to use something else, so I went into Moon Prism. I used Gravity right here on the outer portions of my face, and you can see how it merges really neatly into my contour as a result of that. And I just have Westman Atelier Biscuit as my contour. For highlighter, I bought this Bobbi Brown highlighter in Pink Glow. I've wanted to try Pink Glow from Bobbi Brown for years at this point, but I just have never wanted to actually pay full price for it. This went on sale down to $25. I think it's just because of the limited edition packaging. They're trying to get rid of it. So I was like, yeah, I can go for this. Isn't it so pretty? But it is just Pink Glow on the inside, but with special embossing. It is really pretty, so I'm very glad I have it. It's actually it's a beautiful highlighter. My false lashes are from House of Lashes. They're the Love and Light lashes from the Secret collection. I don't actually know if these are even available at this point, but I got these half off during one of Ulta's sales or something a while back. I absolutely love how short they are. The curl is just, obviously you can tell it was much more expensive with the material, the comfort, and the way the lashes are curled, so I'll definitely use these until they fall apart. And then finally for my lips, I line my lips and then I use the Urban Decay lipstick in Hitchhike. When they had their $10 lipstick sale, I got a couple shades, so one of them was Hitchhike. It's actually a little bit warm for this look, I think. So this is gonna be look number one. This is just not a look I would have expected to create with Fall Magic from Unearthly Cosmetics, but here we are. I love it. I will definitely be doing some more colorful looks for the next two looks, but I do really love always being able to see just how many directions a palette can go in. But yeah, okay, on to the next look. Okay, we're back for look number two. I don't really like how I did my brows today, but we'll just ignore it. So I really want to try out the green shade today, so I'm gonna play around with that. So I did use the Rare Beauty eyeshadow primer today, so I'm going to go into Autumn, which is right here. Beautiful looking shade. I'm gonna first start off with my finger, and it's very smooth on my finger. It doesn't seem quite as foiled as Change, but it's also a lot smoother, and it's not quite as satin as Cashmere, so it's kind of a good midpoint. And I'm just going to block in a shape like that. By the way, I did get a lash lift, so that's why my natural lashes look visible for once. So as you can see, I'm being a little bit constrained with where I'm putting it. I do have plans for the other parts of my eye, so. I love how this looks. It's just a really fiery orange with a little bit of a red rose pinky kind of shift. So it's predominantly orange gold, and then you can see little hints of pink reflect. This kind of reminds me of like a duochrome version of some of the new shades Terra Moon's just released, which I do wish I could get. So we're gonna start with that, I think. I'm gonna kind of diffuse it a little bit further out, just so that the outer part of my eye has something to blend into later. But as you can see, I concentrated the majority of the pigment on the inner half of my eye, and it's so pretty. So I think now I really want to go into Leaves. Oh, the shadow is kind of squishy. As you can see here, see that dent I created as I push in with my brush? See, I can show you guys. It's squishy. So definitely not gonna be super brush friendly. Okay, yeah, this almost feels like some kind of like, it's almost borderline feels like a weird gel going on my eyelid. Yeah, it feels like a putty shadow. I don't know how much I like that, you guys. I feel like that kind of shade is gonna dry out in an instant. It is pretty though. As you can see, I'm creating my favorite gradient ever. I also do feel quite a bit of kind of oil in it. So I would say if you have really oily lids, you may be worried about creasing. So we'll see as I finish this look. But yeah, I was not expecting Leaves to feel like that. I thought they were all just gonna be standard powder shadows. Yeah, it feels almost greasy. It looks fine on me right now, but who knows what it'll wear like, and more importantly, who knows how long a shadow like this will last before it dries out. But yeah, it's really weird kind of how it's interacting with Autumn. It's almost borderline breaking up Autumn underneath because of the oil. I can't really say I like this formula, and I was not expecting to see this. As I turn my head, you can kind of see a cast. So you see how the green shows up? It's a cast because it is kind of has a darker base to it. This is really weird. I don't know how I feel about formulas like this. Moving on. I'm gonna deepen up this entire look using Earth now. I also want to use this shade to kind of blend out the outer corner. This is a formula I would have expected to see in a pot with a lid. I don't usually expect to see formulas like this inside of a palette. I've totally done this gradient before, you guys, but I can't resist. It's one of my favorite gradients to do. I will say it is being slightly oily. I am able to stick the matte to it pretty well, so you can see I'm using the matte green just to add a little more depth. So that's working out okay. I had a plan, but I think I'm gonna scrap it because it's gonna be tricky to work around this very highly emollient formula. It's going to be tricky to do what I wanted or working around it because the shadows are, it's behaving weirdly with the other formulas I'm laying down or have already laid down. And because I didn't know that it was a putty, I didn't prepare for it. So I'm gonna scrap my plan. We'll just improvise. It'll be fine. Okay, so I blended it out. I tried to like diffuse it a little more, but you can definitely, of course, see this is why I don't necessarily super like shimmers with dark casts, because I turn my head to the front and you can kind of see the cast, but that's okay. That's neither here nor there. And I'm going to go into Cozy, which is right here. I should be able to use this shade very lightly to diffuse the top of the eyeshadow. I was gonna initially do something a lot darker up here, but I think I will scrap that plan in favor of just making sure it looks nice and diffused. I do find the mattes in this palette so far, they blend out really easily, but the darker shades don't build up to look true to pan, so they're kind of a little more on the buildable side. Personally, I don't mind. They are super pretty. I suspect if you have a stickier primer, you'll be able to build them up a lot more than I am. Yeah, so as you can see, I'm blending it out. It looks good now. And I do need to start working on the lower lash line. And I'm going to go into Earth again. I'm just gonna go... There are some glitter flecks from leaves that are still on my brush that are kind of appearing on my lower lash line. I think it honestly actually looks kind of cute, so I'll just let it be. Yeah, as you can see, I'm not really able to get it built up to look like the pan, but it still looks really good and it blends out and is really easy to manipulate. And then I'm going to take a little bit of Cozy, buff underneath. Yeah, so that's what that's looking like so far. I really wish I could put leaves on my lower lash line. So I think what I'm gonna have to do, I have a plan. These dumb little things back into your little portal to Narnia. Enjoy your stay. I'm gonna see if I can use this. So I'm gonna use the narrow side. And actually, I know we brag on these, but you know how sometimes when you get tips like this and they feel like you're stabbing yourself as you apply it because it's so stiff? These are actually super soft. So yeah. Luxury applicators. They're like super soft and I kind of wish you could buy them in mass. Like, is there a way for me to just buy a bunch of these? Okay, well, to be real, if Tom Ford sold a bag of Tom Ford applicators, like a bag of 100 applicators, you'd probably have to pay like $300 for them. Let's be real here. But I do wonder where I can get stuff like this. So I'm gonna use this applicator and there we go, that's so much better. Like seriously, his applicators are the softest eye applicators I've ever tried. No joke though, Tom Ford's applicators are super soft. Yeah, I feel like it's really hard for me to get an even layer of shadow on this. Like it's kind of uneven, a little bit patchy. So this shadow at best to me feels like it's gonna just be like a toppery shadow, but you can kind of see the unevenness of it. So I'm gonna take an inner corner highlighter and I'm getting analysis paralysis. I'm just gonna use this one from the Sunflower collection in the shade Flower Child. I got these because I love sunflowers. Ooh, this one's starting to dry up a little bit. It's like starting to separate from the pan a little bit, but that's okay. I mostly bought the Sunflower collection for collector's purposes. I'm well aware of this, so I do not mind that they are drying up. So I'm just gonna dust this over my inner corner. Well, once this shade dries out, I will try and revive it and see what happens. This, by the way, is why I used to buy their Jelly Mutt shadows and I don't anymore, because their Jelly Mutt shadows literally went in like 2 months and then mine was gone and I was just like, okay, what the heck? And this was with the stopper and everything. Okay, so this is gonna be my finished look now. I'm gonna go and finish off my makeup. I may just use mascara today. I really want to like rock my lash lift, so today might just be a mascara day. It would look a lot better with lashes, but I love being able to take advantage of my lash lift while I have it, so I'll be back. Okay, so I'm gonna call this the finished look. My hair is very dry. It's winter. I do really like how it turned out in terms of what I was able to pull off, the colors I picked, etc. It's a warm tone makeup look. Shocker, I know. We've been on the cool tone train, so we thought we'd do something different today. I do really like how everything turned out. So quickly, I'll just very quickly go over what's on my face. For the blush, I use the ColourGram Talk Mood Filter Blusher in 02. This came as like a free sample with my Julesy order. It's okay. It's not bad. It's not like remarkable. I'm gonna hold on to it because it is a nice color. It's kind of got like a two-part thing. This is like slightly glowy and then this is matte. And then I blended all of that out with the Peri Para shade in Cotton Nude. As you can see, it's a great blending out shade for a color like this, which is cool. And then for highlighter, I used the Nala's trying to make everything fall off my desk. I used this shade on the cheeks and then I used the shade on the nose. So as you can see, I've got like a goldy kind of highlighter on my nose and then on my cheek, and then my nose is, as usual, the highlighters that don't leave a cast. And then for my lips, I lined my lips, and then my mom got this Lancome gift box. It was like, she like, oh, I paid $75 and it says a $500 value, so of course I bought it. Moms. And then she was like, oh, but I don't use any of this, do you want it? And so she gave me the lipstick that came in the box. It's the La Absolue Rouge in 274 French Tea. As you can see, it's a warm, darker color. I actually really like it. The formula's alright. It's not my favorite. It's a little bit messy, so if you'll excuse me. I'm trying to see if I can pull off the like blur out the Cupid's bow. I'm trying to see if I can pull that off, or do I look ridiculous? Don't answer that. I have thoughts about this look, specifically with the eyeshadow, and I'm going to zoom you guys in because like I think you guys need to see this. Okay, we're in focus. And the light is, I'm still at ISO 100, but with it being zoomed in, it's gonna look darker because I haven't changed the ISO, but that's gonna let me show you guys what it looks like. So I'm gonna look down and you guys can see the eyeshadow. So as you can see, when I am turned towards the camera like this, the reflect of the shadow makes it look really nice, really even, but I turn to the front and I'm pulling my hair out of the way. Turn to the front, it's patchy. There's patchiness going on. And it is because this eyeshadow is so emollient and so oily that it's essentially applying unevenly, and it's also removing what's underneath. And then it makes it difficult for me to put eyeshadow on top. So from the side, there's nothing wrong. It looks great. But once I turn my head and the cast comes through and you can see the base, you can start to see just how unevenly this eyeshadow has been applied. And I almost feel like it has started already to fade, because it didn't look like this when I first put it on. So other eye, I turn to the camera, it looks really good. And I turn away and you can start to see some problems. And then on the lower lash line, it's especially evident on the lower lash line. Do you see how it's applied so unevenly that it looks like I did a really bad job applying it when I definitely did a fine job applying it? Do you see? So I hope that that was able to kind of help show you guys what I'm talking about with this eyeshadow. It's really a big letdown for me that Unearthly Cosmetics chose to go with a formula like this. This palette was almost $40 without shipping, and then with shipping I think I paid like almost $45 for this. So for one shade to not work in the whole palette, not really the bestest of looks. And the other thing that I don't really appreciate is that I didn't really know before buying this palette that there was a, like, I didn't really know that there was gonna be a putty-like shade in this, because it's not like her website has any description, which is also one of the more frustrating parts of indie brands, is they sometimes can be super scant with their descriptions, and that can be really frustrating. So like the only way you would have known is if you had watched YouTube videos, but there's not really many videos covering Unearthly Cosmetics at this point in time, so I had no idea that there was going to be a putty-like formula, and I really wish that we had known. This is really putting me off of buying future palettes from Unearthly Cosmetics, because if there's more putty-like shades in them, and I have no way of knowing, and I also can't like return this obviously, then I'm gonna be risking buying a palette where potentially there's even more than just one shade that's gonna be in this formula. So I'm just gonna put that out there. I was so excited for this palette and this look. I'm not like hating this look, but I am not the biggest fan of this formula. This is gonna be the second look. It was an experience. So I'm gonna move on to the third look where I cover the shades I didn't use. Hopefully I get around to actually using all the shades in this palette, and I'll be back for the third look. Okay, I'm back to do the third look. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with Snug. I thought I said Shrug for a second. What is wrong with me? Snug. And as you can see, I put on Snug very easily, and in real time you can see how quickly I just blended that out. So that's cool, right? We can go for that. Kind of do what I've been experimenting with, and I'm also going to put it on the inner corner as well. But you can see here, it's a shadow you really have to build. As an update to look 2, after wearing that, I wore that look for, ended up wearing it for like 4 hours. I had such a long night, you guys. So busy, but after only 4 hours, it was patchy. Did not look good, and especially on my lower lash line, it pretty much looked like it was gone, and it was really only sticking inside the folds and crevices of my under eyes where I had been like making expressions. So I am not pleased with that. I definitely think a glitter glue is going to be necessary, and I will tack in at the end of the video a brief, probably just a brief phone video of me discussing that. As you can see, this is such a pretty plum. Do love me a good plum. So I am gonna go into Bonfire. It's a little bit lighter than Snug. Jackson's trying to hump me, so again. It's a little bit warmer and redder. I don't know, that might have been a mistake. I think my new filming, I like made some very minor tweaks to the angle of the camera, and I think it's helping me stay in frame more often. Especially because I tend to start dropping my head as I film. Okay, so it could be worse. I'm gonna go and start kind of see if I can like pack on Snug a little bit. So I'm using a denser pointed brush now to maintain precision, and you can now see me pack on Snug. And as you can see, I can get it quite darker, but at the same time it still maintains a little bit of sheerness to it. It's not completely opaque, so it just looks really pretty, very soft. Yeah, just look at like, that is such a seamless blend in the outer corner there. And I do really like being able to show off what my looks look like before I stick shimmers on, because shimmers can hide a lot of mistakes. So I'm just going to use my finger and take Magic. If I squish it, it does leave an imprint versus... See the difference in imprint for Cashmere, and then if I squish Autumn, it doesn't squish as much. Versus this one squishes. Oh yeah, no. This is a puttyish shade. I don't like that. Well then, you know what? If this is also a putty shade, I'm going to change my plans. We're changing trajectory, but I'm going to put on my glitter glue. I mean, it's fine if I go off frame when I apply glitter glue. I feel like you guys know how to put on glitter glue. It's really not that hard. I'm going to use Magic. It is very smooth. It comes off as like a black based or dark based kind of multi-chrome. We're getting some problems like we did yesterday, and this is after everything has been said and done, then I'm gonna be disappointed in this palette for sure. And even if the mattes are super great, I'm gonna have a really hard time saying that this is a worthwhile use of your money unless it were to go on sale. And I am personally really not super happy to see this kind of formula in a palette, because first off, it feels so greasy. I just don't see this being fun for people to apply, especially if you have oily lids or lids with a lot of wrinkles and folds. I feel like this is just going to crease on you instantly. Without the glitter glue, I had a poor experience wear time wise. Eyeshadow usually does not fade on me after 4 hours. I usually don't deal with that, so if that happens to me, that's not a good sign. And furthermore, yesterday when I was applying leaves, I felt like it was breaking up my eyeshadow underneath and making applying eyeshadow on top of it all but impossible because of its weird texture. So I have a lot of words for this eyeshadow. I have a lot of feelings and they're not good. Did I see this kind of information being shared? And this is what really can get to me about indie brands, is that unless somebody on YouTube is discussing them, and not every YouTuber goes over this kind of stuff, like not all, some YouTubers just forget to mention it, they miss it, or in a very few cases, they will purposefully not mention something. It's hard to find this information, and if it's not on the website, you buy it and you don't know, it's really disappointing, and it's not like you can just return it. So I really wish she would put on her website the name of each shade and the formula that it's in. But before you quote me on that, I am gonna go back to her website. Okay, so I went on to her website, and I even used the Wayback Machine to double check Fall Magic, which is currently not on her website because it's out of stock, which is fine. Fall Magic actually is even less informative. It literally says 7 mattes, 5 shimmers. Very useful, thank you. No mention of putties anyway. I went to her Dead of Night palette and I saw that it does have each shade listed in the description. You go to more info, you can see every single shade listed, and then you can see it will say matte with sparkle, matte or shimmer, or duochrome. However, it says nothing about the texture, and this is where the plausible denial comes in. I don't know if Dead of Night actually has these putty shades in it. Dead of Night could potentially be a palette where everything's powder. There are no putty shades. So yeah, sucks to be me. If you like putty shadows, then go knock yourself out. You're gonna love these, but I personally am not a happy camper right now. Now, they're not ugly by any means of the imagination. I just find that the performance and wear time is just not what I like, and I do not like how greasy they feel. So it looks like it does indeed have a slightly darker base, but it's not a black base, and it goes on a little bit more sheer, kind of glossy looking, and it does have some sparkle in it. So if it was a powder, I would absolutely adore this finish, because I'm definitely getting multi-chrome vibes without that super ridiculously gray cast, because I just can't deal with those. I cannot deal with dark base multi-chromes. I'm not skilled enough to deal with the cast. So I'm really glad to see that there's very little cast on this, unlike with leaves. You know, it feels nice on my eyelid. It doesn't feel thick or goopy, but I just feel like, well, I'll reserve judgment. I'll see how this wears. I'm probably, to be honest, I would like to start getting to bed earlier. I am a night owl, but sometimes I get a little excessive about how late I stay up. Probably I'm not gonna fall asleep until 2 tonight again, because I have so much to do. So even though it is already 10:30, I will still be able to see how the shadow performs after about 4 hours. And if by 4 hours it's looking like a train wreck, well, that would basically tell me everything I need to know. I'm gonna complete this eye look and stop ranting. I do need to find a place to put Spiced, so I'm gonna take Spiced, which is this, it's such a pretty orange. These colors are like very muted. You know how mute colors are really popular in Korea this year? But their mute colors that are popular tend to be super milky, so they show up on literally nobody. But at the same time, they're not desaturated to the point of looking gray. They are still very much vivid colors, but they've been taken down just enough notches. These colors, these mattes are incredibly nuanced and so sophisticated in terms of the undertone and saturation. And they also work really well together without feeling monochromatic. I would be lying to say I dislike this palette, even with Magic and Leaves both not being my favorite shades. The 7 mattes in this palette are genuinely beautiful. Like most of the time with indie palettes, I'm just like, yeah, the mattes are fine, passable, usable, tolerable. The mattes are blowing me away. Okay, so now I'm gonna put a shimmer shade on the lower lash line, and I don't want to use Magic or Leaves again for now. So I'm going to use Autumn for just that splash of vividness on the lower lash line. Just matches with Spice so well. And this shade does perform really nicely on a brush. Autumn is so pretty, and then I am gonna go ahead and take Autumn on my inner corner. Kind of cover up a little bit of Magic. Kind of some more color unison there with my lower lash line. They kind of make a really weird color mixed together, I will be honest, but I don't want there to be purple and then orange abruptly. Yeah, I like how that looks. And then I am going to, I'm running out of brushes. Take a smaller brush, and then I'm also gonna make sure there's a stronger defined boundary. Yeah, so it just has a little bit more partitioning. Lastly, I do want to go back into Snug, and I'm gonna take this really pointy but also soft and flimsy Hakuhodo brush, one of my favorite brush shapes, and I'm gonna use this shade to really tidy up what's on the inner corner, so you can see how precisely I can get that shadow, and then I can still get a nice easy blend. I did get some fallout on my nose. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna really have the easiest time getting it off because I didn't powder my nose, but using a little bit less this time, I'll do the other eye. I feel like my inner corner eyeshadow work always still ends up looking a little bit messy, but yeah, I think I need something even brighter just to kind of almost hide that a little bit. So I'm gonna use Space Cowboy. Pretty shadow right here. I'm gonna use this on the inner corners, brighten everything up, and to kind of hide all my snafus, because that's what inner corner highlight is for. And again, I'm using Urban Decay Space Cowboy, and this is the new formulation. I do not have Space Cowboy in the old formulation. I do have a shade in the old formulation, it's just not Space Cowboy. And I think that looks a lot better. And then once I powder my face and my nose, it'll make the edge of the eyeshadow look a lot smoother there as well. And I'm gonna finish off the rest of my makeup, and then when I come back, it'll have been maybe 20 to 25 to 30 minutes later. I'll see if this eyeshadow is starting to train wreck on me, and I will finish up my thoughts about this palette. Okay, I'm back with the finished look. Everything wrapped up. Now, when I woke up this morning, my lips had a lot of dead skin and I completely forgot to exfoliate them, so I literally had to go through like 6 or 7 lip products to find something that wouldn't just show off all the dead skin I totally need to peel off my lips. I ended up settling on some variation of a ton of tinted balms, and then I finally just gave up and topped it all off with the Maybelline Superstay Ink Crayon in a shade. I don't know what shade it is, doesn't say. For blush, I use the Sweet Cheek Soft Cheek Tint. It is in the shade, you know, they never put it, Almost Famous. It's a really nice bright orange shade. I do really like this formula. I have 2 shades and I like them both. And then for highlighter, I use the Dior Quad, which I can't really hold up really well because it's broken. But I use this shade down here, which I don't actually use that often, and then I use, of course, the gold shade up here on my nose. And then for lashes, I'm using the House of Lashes Love and Light. First off, my false lash wants to run away because evidently I didn't put it on right, so we'll just hope it stays, so fingers crossed. I do see some creasing, so I'm going to zoom you guys in. So again, my ISO is at 100, so it gets dark when I zoom in, but it should be in focus, so I'm going to show you guys. See creasing? Do you guys see it? Right here. There's some creasing. That is very disappointing. I generally don't have issues with my shadows creasing. Like, seriously, it takes a lot for a shadow to crease on me. Like, yeah, that's disappointing because it's not even been half an hour. If you don't mind 2 putty shades being in the palette, then by all means go ahead. I really have a hard time disliking the palette because, as I reiterated, the mattes are just absolutely beautiful tones, and even in the sea of eyeshadow palettes we swimmeth in, the mattes are quite unique. I am not a happy camper right now with this shade. I will do a final update after I finish filming here. You'll see me cut in probably just like a phone video. But I will quickly go over this palette shade by shade. I'll talk about the textures so that way future people who are buying, hello, I'm here. I will talk through every single shade and I will cover what the website did not, and that way you guys have an informed decision. This is a matte, very beautiful. This is not a putty shade. It's very sparkly, kind of thick and almost chunky feeling, absolutely gorgeous with a finger. I think it would work fine with a brush too, but you may want to use a glitter glue, but this was so pretty. I absolutely love this. It's like elevated neutral. This is such a beautiful mute orange. Absolutely beautiful. I have it on my lower lash line right here. Quintessential fall shade, but instead of being that intense deep burnt orange, it's muted. So pretty. This is like, almost reads like a luxury high-end satin smooth metallic. It feels like something you would see off of like Dior or something. Now whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is totally up to you, but definitely an uncommon finish for me to see in the indie world, and I personally really liked it. It felt super taupey to me, and I'm like totally on taupe train right now. This would be an excellent one and done shadow and is overall a beautiful shade. This is one of those puttyish shades. It doesn't have a dark base like a lot of multi-chromes of this shift do, but it's not opaque. As you can see, it creased immediately. Super greasy and oily feeling on my finger. This is such a pretty mute green, but it's not super earthy. There's not a lot of orange brown in it. There's also not a lot of blue in it either. It's just mute. So it's not olive, it's not teal. It's right in between there. Perfect, true primary green, but also muted down. Very unique shade of green, I do have to say. I don't think I have a shade of green like this in my entire collection. This is a really pretty bright, brilliant orange gold shade. Lots of gold reflect, reads mostly orange on the eye, has a little bit of pink to it. Not the rose to gold duochrome, but it's still super pretty. Another one of my favorites, plays well with a finger or a brush. Use glitter glue if you want to, but it's not necessary, and I do absolutely love this shade. This is another mute kind of shade. As you can see, it's almost like peach, but turn it fall. Gorgeous, love it. This, as you can see, it's a plum shade, super pretty. It blends like a dream. Doesn't quite build up to pan, but it blends so easily, literally foolproof. Another putty shade. This has a darker base, so if you use it on the side of your eyes, when you turn to the front, you're gonna see that ashy cast. Wore terribly on me, and without glitter glue, but you can see how this is wearing with glitter glue. It ain't much better, you guys. Not a fan of this formula. This is a gorgeous maroonish matte. It's a little too similar to Snug, but they're still different enough that given that it's a fall palette, I'll give it a pass. Really, really pretty. And then this is just a perfect dark neutral brown. It's not too cool and it's definitely not warm. The coziest shade in this palette. This is the stay at home cozy wrapped in your scarf sipping your hot chocolate shade. Plays really well with the shade up here. And that's gonna summarize the palette. So make the decision for yourself. Personally, I still am happy to have it and I still don't feel like I wasted my money, but this palette is being carried completely on the back of its mattes. I have multichromes in my collection that are super similar to Leaves and Magic and that are in vastly superior powder shadow formulas. It's going to totally be a case-by-case basis. If you consider two shades being a dud, too much of a drag on the palette for it to be worth your money. Some people like me are gonna just overlook it. Leave that up to you. I'm going to end this video here. I hope this was informative. I'll see you guys in the next video. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions. I hope to see you in my future videos. I've got lots of eyeshadow palette content up on my channel, and I have lots of eyeshadow palette content to come, of course. And that'll be it from me. Bye guys. Hi everyone. So I can never tell if my phone has a filter on it. It's a Google Pixel, but sometimes they have filters. But anyways, I wanted to show you guys what it looks like. I had a chaotic evening and I think I'm about to die on the inside. But basically, so it's like almost 2 as I predicted, but basically it's kind of hard to pick up on my phone camera, but I think you can see, especially on this eye, that the creasing has gotten so bad. Yeah, you can really see it when I lift up my eyelid just a little bit. Do you see this light line you're seeing here? That's just straight up creasing. And then you can see it again, the same effect. It's not as bad. Anyways, ignore the rest of my makeup. It's been a night, but I just wanted to show you that. Yeah, from this angle, you see how it's just straight up patched off where it's creasing? So yeah, I am not the biggest fan of this formula. They either improve it or just take it out.